Welcome to my YouTube channel, and today we are going to be looking at routing using Angular framework. Now, Angular provides a powerful routing model for building single page applications with multiple views, and it also enables navigation between different components just based on the URL changes, allowing users to interact with the application. Now, what we have here is a Video Studio Canva, and we would just be using the Angular CLI command line to actually create a framework. So I'm just going to be installing using the npm, and I'm going to say npm install at Angular, and that would be slash CLI. So what this will do, it will install the Angular package for us in our Visual Studio Code to create the framework. Oops, it's like that. Okay, that's fine. So it's a framework that we can use to build web applications, and it has some nice features and generally just a robust architecture. So now that we have succeeded in creating our framework, it's going to prompt us what we want to use. So we have the option of using CSS, SCSS. I'll choose CSS. And then that just builds the framework for us. So now we have our folders. We have the app component, and oh, I forgot to mention, it also uses TypeScript as well. So I'm just gonna cd into the folder, and now what we want to do is that we can actually use the CLI command to create components. So that's the next step I want to do. Remember, the whole idea for this exercise is to create routing between different components. So I'm just going to be saying routing ng generate component for home. So that will be our home page, and that creates it for us. So unlike other frameworks where you create the files, you can actually just use the CLI command on your terminal to actually create a component file, which is awesome. So the next component that I want to create is I want to create a component called services. So I'm just going to be using the same command, and that would also create the services components. So we want to also create another one because we want to be able to navigate back and forth these different components. So we're going to create another one called about, and that creates that for us within our folder. And the next one we want to create as well, I think this will be the last one, and that would be the contact component. So now we have 4 of these components created within our folder. Now let's see how Angular navigates through this components. So it's all about the routing. So basically, how do we move from home, contact, about, and services? So we are going to be going into the app.route.ts file, the app.config.ts file. This is where we would also import the routes, but we are going to be doing the logic, putting the logic in our app routes.ts file. So I'm going to be importing some models. So the first model I'm going to be importing is the ng model. And of course, we are going to be importing that from Angular. So we're going to be importing the router, but because we already have routes there, we can just add the router model to routes as well. And now we have both models that we need for our routing function. So now, of course, we have the export const routes and now we want to create the parts. So within this app, the routes.ts file, we will be creating the route parts, and it's just us assigning the different parts with the different names. And the first one, of course, we have that empty string there, which is the home. And then we have another one. We want to create another one for services. So we're just going to put in services. Now, if you notice, I am using the exact name that I used in creating the components. So I'm just going to be doing the same thing, and I'm going to be calling that service component as well. And service. We also have the good IntelliSense that help us to, basically save time. So the third one that I am going to be using is, the third part is the about as well. So just going to be creating that about and saying components, and also using the about component. And then the final one is the contact. So we're going to be giving that the same thing, part, and we are going to be using the exact name that we named it when we created the component. And we are going to be saying contact component as well. So now we have the 4 different components that we want to be able to navigate in our web application. So we are going to be calling the engine model that we initially imported. And inside this model, we are going to be having create something called the imports. And then what we want to import is we want to import the router model. And also for root, yes. And then we want to pass in our route function as well. And then we want to also have an export as well. So we would create another file, we'll create the exports, and then we can also pass in router model. So now we have the import and the export using our ng model. We just want to make sure that we don't have any error. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to be creating export class as well, and we are just going to say app routing module. So now we have our app route.typescript, and now we can test it. So we are going to go into a terminal, and to test an Angular framework, we are just the syntax is ng serve, but I forgot to cd into my folder, so I'm just gonna cd into the folder, which would be routing. And now I can use the ng-serve syntax to run my application. So now we are just going to wait for it to give us a port to listen to the application. It should be port 4200. So let's just wait for that to build. And now that as built, and we can actually view our application and see how it looks like. So if we go to application, we can see the Angular framework, but also we want to, of course, change all of that. We don't want to see hello routing. So we want to take all of this off, and remember the whole idea for this tutorial is to create routing. And so we're just going to save that. Now let's go back to application. So if we go back to our application, we'll see the first page we see is the home page, which just has something like homeworks. Now let's navigate to services. So we'll just see services. We'll see services works. That page works as well. And then we navigate to contact. We'll see contact also works. So we can, and then the final page is the about page as well. And that works. But we want to change what it looks like now. If for the purpose of this tutorial, like I said, it's for routing. But remember, Angular framework uses HTML elements. So you can add anything you want to in this HTML file. You can add things like images, videos. You can add more text. You can add any H1 tags, elements. You can customize it and create so many beautiful sections or anything you want to create. But just to show you how it works, I am just going to be changing the paragraph element, and I'm just going to be saying something like service page for Angular. But of course, this is a lot much more customizable to create beautiful sections or pages for your web application. So I'm just going to be changing all of that for each page. So you have the contact page. I'm just going to be changing that as well. And also we have the about page, and I'm also going to be changing that as well. So it works the same if you're familiar with HTML. This will be really easy to understand because we are just using HTML files here. So we just want to test it for home page, and then we see that what I changed it to actually changed. So the next page we also want to test is the service page, so we can see what that as well as also be changed as well. And then we want to route to about, and we can also see about page that has also be changed, and contact as well. So this is a really good framework. I find it very useful for web applications. So this is how routing is done in Angular framework. Thank you for watching.